Good morning, world history students. Today is April 29th, 2022. Happy Friday. Today I'm at another doctor's appointment, but I look forward to being back with you on Monday and continuing our study of World War I, the Great War. Today, your warm-up is to define Soviet, war communism, abdicate, armistice, mandate, and reparation from the definitions in the margins of your textbook from pages 654 to 663. Your warm-up is due today, so once you're done defining those terms, make sure your name is on your warm-up, that each day is labeled with the date, and turn that into your class basket. Also, we have several reading guides coming up. Chapter 27.4 is due on May 3rd. 28.1 is due on May 4th. And 28.2 is due on May 5th. Complete those and turn them in on Canvas. I'll get those into the grade book for you as soon as possible. Also, you have up until May 7th to complete any missing reading guides for half credit. 10 points is definitely better than 0 points. Get those in by May 7th. We're also going to briefly continue with our notes on World War I, Part 2. World War I was in many ways a culmination of the Industrial Revolution. The technology, inventions, and machines of industrialization are now being harnessed and used in warfare. It's the first war in which tanks are used, in which airplanes fight against each other and against troops on the ground. Poison gas is used on both sides. Modern air-cooled, water-cooled, belt-fed, fully automatic machine guns are used to sweep no man's land in a deadly fire. And submarines are used on both sides with deadly torpedoes to sink enemy ships. The first tanks were monsters. They were enormous machines on tracks so they could pass through the mud of no man's land. The front of the tanks were heavily armored with steel to protect the tank from machine guns and enemy fire as it ran straight over barbed wire entanglements through no man's land. Infantry troops walked behind the tanks as protection through no man's land. And even though they were slow and broke down often, they were successful in getting through no man's land alive. Early tanks had large crews of up to 12 men, with big guns and machine guns, drivers, mechanics, all on board these land ships moving across no man's land. They were designed first by the British to get across no man's land, and they were even built to cross straight over a trench without having to stop or go into the trench. Airplanes were used to fight each other in the air and to bomb troops on the ground. The first pilots fought each other with pistols in the sky, but later on, machine guns were mounted to these planes, and they fought each other, and they strafed soldiers on the ground. The most famous fighter pilot of the war was the Red Baron, who shot down dozens of enemy planes. Poison gas was used by both sides in the Great War. Gas canisters were unleashed when the wind was blowing towards the enemy trenches. Even the beasts of burden had to wear gas masks to protect themselves from the horrific effects of the poison gas. One nurse wrote of a mustard gas victim. The skin of victims of mustard gas blistered. Their eyes became very sore and they began to vomit. Mustard gas caused internal and external bleeding and attacked the bronchial tubes, stripping off the mucous membrane. This was extremely painful. Fatally injured victims sometimes took 4 or 5 weeks to die of mustard gas exposure. This is a photograph of a soldier who had been gassed with mustard gas. Look at the blisters on his neck and face and hands and armpits. It would take weeks for these soldiers' airways to close up and for them to die a painful, brutal death. That same nurse, Vera Brittain, wrote, "I wish those people who talk about going on with this war, whatever it costs, could see the soldiers suffering from mustard gas poisoning. Great mustard-colored blisters, blind eyes, all sticky and stuck together, always fighting for breath, with voices a mere whisper, saying that their throats are closing and they know they will choke." Submarines were new inventions that could go underwater and torpedo enemy ships in hiding, and then submerge again beneath the waves and make an escape. The Germans were especially good at using their U-boats, underwater boats, to sink Allied shipping. But it backfired when, in sinking the Lusitania in 1915, they killed 128 Americans. This is one of the main reasons why the USA entered the war against Germany when they restarted unrestricted submarine warfare in 1917. Here's a German U-boat. You can see that they weren't that big. They had a crew of roughly 35, and their main weapon were torpedoes, bombs on propellers that they would shoot at enemy ships. Machine guns were highly effective weapons. This is a water-cooled, belt-fed, fully automatic German machine gun being crewed by German soldiers wearing gas masks on the front lines of a trench. Because the machine guns could traverse left and right, they could sweep no man's land with deadly fire, making it nearly impossible to successfully cross no man's land during the Great War. That's where we'll conclude our lecture today. I will be back on Monday, and we will continue on with our study of World War I, the Great War. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.